Hi, this is Mr. Victor, and we're going to talk right now about one of the trickiest steps in creating an analytical paragraph when you're doing close passage analysis. A lot of people told me the hardest thing is going from making observations to finding a pattern. So I created a demo showing you one way of making that happen. Alright, as a quick review, I've already done two things. I've already annotated a passage, and I've already started to capture my thoughts on a 4-column chart. Remember, the last column is finding patterns. So here's what I've done already. This is, imagine, my book, and the stuff on the right, these are my annotations. So I read through my passage using my annotation look fors list. I've looked for things that jump out at me, and I've marked them and started to write down some thoughts. So for 4 pages, I have about 22 annotations, and I've also started to make this 4-column chart. I've put in the text, the words that I annotated. Shrill voice was one word that I marked, and I've put in my observations. So I've already started to think about the connotations and what the words make me think of. Now here's the hard part. I have to start recognizing patterns. Now it's important, I have not even thought about patterns up until this point. I've just noticed words that are important and started to observe them. But now that I have some of the words on the chart, I'm going to see, do they have anything to do with each other? So I'm going to read over my observations really closely. And that's going to help me. So I read over my observations for shrill voice, turned sour, and vanished. And I realized that all these things have to do with boundaries. Rudy was imagining that he was Jesse Owens, a super athlete, but then he sees his dad, he gets in trouble, he hits the boundaries of reality. So I put a note about that because all 3 of these passages seemed to be working the same way. I'm beginning to see a pattern. Looking at more of the words that I annotated, the pattern is starting to develop and take an interesting twist. Breeze is a word where Rudy seems to be imagining going back to the fantasy, escaping from reality. At least that's the way I thought of it in my observations here. So I put a pattern observation related to boundaries but a little bit different. Maybe he's imagining what happens if you don't stay within the boundaries. Then I did the same thing with Rudy's dad, with these entries here. I noticed words like this, where my observations suggest Rudy's dad is staying within the boundaries, but then I noticed stuff like this, with leaking, that suggests there might be a possibility of somewhere on the inside, Rudy's dad starting to escape from the boundaries that he's confining himself within. When I get to looking at itch in his heart and safe blue eyes down here, I'm starting to see how these boundaries fit together. The pattern of boundaries. Rudy and his dad could play by the rules of Nazi Germany and do what Hitler tells them to do and hold up this idea of safe blue eyes. But there's a danger in it. The itch in the heart of Rudy's dad sounds like it could be really painful, especially if we associate it with the earlier splinter images. This is making me realize maybe staying within the boundaries is dangerous. Maybe it's actually safer in a way, and maybe you have more of a grip on reality in a way if you try to escape those boundaries. So all these pattern observations have helped me to get this cool idea that I'm excited enough about that I think I'm ready to write. Here's a brainstorm I made based on the patterns I was looking at, and you can read it yourself. I'm not going to read it aloud, but highlighted in green is the breakthrough idea that might become the heart of my new analytical paragraph. So I just walked you through how I went from observing stuff to starting to see a pattern. The next step would be to go ahead and write the paragraph and make moves like pointing to quotes. So I'm Mr. Victor, and I hope that helps.